So hello, I'm Kathryn. Nice to meet all of you and see some, I've been standing all night. It's like there's so many fabulous people here that I've followed over the years. I am with Warner Music now. Warner Music has a lot of labels that you are probably familiar with. Warner, Atlantic, Rhino, Elektra, 300, also Warner Chappell Music Publishing. So a lot of fun stuff there. And as Alec mentioned before that, I was at Instagram. And so I'm going to be joining with some fabulous panelists to talk about sharing some of those lived experiences with you today. I think part of the reason that my perspective on user experience and user experience research is a little different than many other people's is because I come from a different kind of background. I don't come from an HCI or COG-Sci background. I started out in marketing research, and I was at Ogilvy and Mather, and I was doing brand studies and that kind of thing. So I like to joke that my career has been a meandering journey from Mad Men to Silicon Valley. And picked up a lot of interesting cross perspectives along the way. As Alec mentioned, we are in California, we are in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles offers an awful lot of fun experiences. And I've had the opportunity to work on many of those experiences myself, everything from helping people plan their wedding at Disneyland, to concerts, to Natural History Museum and other kinds of museum experiences. Cars, even horse racing, which I have to admit turned out to not be as fun as I thought it might be. Little hot tip here, nobody wins at horse racing over the long term. It's not a good way to invest your fun money. And yet that's not the kind of experience that normally comes to mind when we talk about UX research, is it? Right? When we think about UX research, what was the first thing what do you associate it with? Just shout some things out. E-commerce, yeah, that's a goodie. Pardon? SaaS, yes, good. Okay, yep. And there's a reason for that. So UX research, human factors research, has its origins in some pretty serious stuff, right? The origin story is trying to keep human beings from making mistakes that had very tragic consequences, right? Picture helping people understand what to do or not do in a nuclear reactor control room, okay? Or with the cockpit of an airplane, or with medical systems and labeling, right? So the origin story is if somebody does something wrong, really bad stuff might happen. Let's try to figure out ways to make sure that that doesn't happen very often, right? But it's a noble goal. Keep looking at the screen and pointing. I think it's a user experience issue, guys. I don't think it's me. So even the ISO definition of user experience, the extent to which a product can be used by specified users to achieve specified goals with effectiveness, efficiency, a little bit of satisfaction in a specified context of use, right? This does not scream fun, does it? All right. It's really grounded in very rational, very concrete goals and tasks. As I think it was Alex said, the job's to be done, right? I like Liz Sanders' definition, and I've been using this for the last 20 years, that usability, user experience is about being useful, usable, and desirable. And I love this quote by Peter Morville: even if a product lacks practicality, it can still be considered useful if it brings entertainment, joy, or amusement to the users. Now we're talking, right? That sounds like something that would be fun to work on. So we're going to talk about a couple of categories that might fall within this purview of what we're talking about. And let's start with music. So I'd like you, if you're tired, don't shut your eyes, but just focus for a moment. It is 5 o'clock. Think about the last time you used whatever your favorite music streaming platform might be if you use one. So Spotify, something along those lines, Apple Music. I want you to think, can you remember where you were, what you were doing, that specified context, right? And then what was your goal in listening to music in that moment? Stay awake while driving. That is a noble goal and one that I wish more Angelinos would take to heart. Do you have a playlist you want to share? All right. What are some other ones? All right. Throw them out. What else? Relax. End of the day, beginning of the day, when? End of the day. And just unwind, right? Separate yourself, right? What else? Huh? Yeah, with the wine. Don't forget the wine. This is context of use. All right. This is all important, right? What else? To get inspired in the morning, right? So it could be in the morning, we're trying to get ramped up. We're trying to get focused. It could be at night, we're trying to unwind. Maybe we were working out. Were you using music to distract yourself from a really tedious part of the workout that you kind of hate? Or were you using it to lift you through your barriers and take you to the next level, all right? To lift you up. Were you using it to set the mood for a special evening? Or maybe to create an ambiance for a friendship get together, right? Just something in the background. Now think about it. All of those things, they had to do with the music. There were also other things that might be associated with that. Did your context of use and desired goal, did it affect whether or not you were willing to have new music introduced versus having complete control over the playlist, right? Of course, it probably affected genre. Perhaps there might be other features that would be interesting or helpful to utilize. Like when you're working out, you need to stay at a certain pace, right? If you're on that treadmill or whatever, it's such an annoyance when something comes in. It's like, no, okay, now my pace is totally screwed up. This is toast, right? So my point is that understanding the real use, the inner use that the person had, the goals that they had, would make us better researchers because we would be able to highlight with our product teams opportunities that might not have been explored, right? So going beyond, I listen to music when I'm at the gym, but really getting into that motivation, those non-articulated goals, that's a big, important part of researching fun. It's actually when playlists became popular that Spotify and other streamers began to have more insight, and the data science team began to get easier access to this concept of what is it the person's really trying to do here, right? And Daniel X says, hey, we've realized now, people don't look at things like hip hop or country anymore, right? That was the radio world, right? Or the CD world, right? They're looking at things based on events and activities. We need to be able to deliver the right music based on who we are, how we're feeling, and what we're doing day by day. And when you get into these really complex latent needs, data triangulation, our favorite word for the day, becomes really important because, as Colette Calandra says, and she's in charge of both data science and research at Spotify, when your data says one thing but your users say another, it's important to have an iterative loop where you can go back and forth, right? I can tell you from working at Instagram, there were numerous instances when the data implied to us that something was going well. People were spending longer doing something or spending a long time, in an activity, that when you talk to them, you realized things were not going well, okay? And then vice versa. Then you might come back and say, well, they told me this, but they're doing that. Is it that because they're embarrassed, or is that because they don't fully understand what's going on, right? All interesting questions. So triangulation becomes very important in this world. All right, now let's talk about gaming. Once again, close your eyes only if it's safe to do so. When I say gaming, what comes to mind? What is the first thing that you think of? Competitive. All right, I like you. You know, she's sitting right in the front row too. All right, what else? Flow. What else? Video games. Yes, good. No wrong answers here. Mountain Dew. That is fabulous. What a great sponsorship. All right. So the interesting thing about gaming is there are widely varying jobs to be done within the broader gaming universe, right? There is the mindless. I personally very frequently will do a game of solitaire before I go to bed. It just helps me transition down to do something that feels kind of mindless and just not related. It turns off the monkey brain, right? I know a lot of people, more guys, but also some women, who really love using this as a way to spend time with other friends or family members. It's the classic thing to do with your nephews that you don't know what to talk about with, right? And it doesn't require a high level of skill, but everybody can sit in the room together, right? Or with your buddy who's moved across the world and you kind of want to stay in touch, but you're not really into like long conversations, right? You just play games, right? And you feel like you're hanging out together. It recreates that sense of closeness, right? And then there's the one that we're going to talk about a little bit more, creating an immersive adventure. These are the real hardcore games, right? These are the things that take you to whole new worlds. Now, while usability is a part of gaming, if you've ever worked, have you seen those consoles that have like 128 different buttons, and to do certain things, you have to be able to hold like 3 of them at the same time? Yeah. So there are usability issues within games, all right? But gaming research is more devoted to playability, all right? And playability in the context of the kind of games I'm talking about here, the goal is flow. Now, there's a lot of psychologists in the room, or emerging psychologists in this room. What do we know about flow? You lose track of time in a good way, right? Right? If anybody here has studied positive psychology, flow is a sense or state of flow is one of the things that is associated with long-term happiness. And that flow is being right at the edge of something you're good at. You've got some mastery of, you've got some skills, right? But it's still challenging, okay? It takes focus, it takes attention, right? Or you're not going to get there. And that puts you in this zone that, once again, gets rid of the monkey mind, gets rid of the cares, makes you feel some sense of competence mingled with excitement. That is the state that this type of game is trying to get you into. The flow state that occurs in gameplay when the player's attention is completely captured by the game and they lose all sense of time and space. Now, there's some wonderful game research experts actually here at USC. Heather DeSevere, Celia Hoden, some other people. If you are not familiar, USC has an amazing game and game research center. You know how they do this? If they've developed like a new universe or a whole new edition of a game, they will actually recruit people to go to an environment for like the weekend. Hey, come. You love this game. You're pretty good at it, or we know what level you're at. We're going to feed you pizza. We're going to pay you some money. You're going to eat, sleep, and play the game. And we're going to watch how long it takes you to finish it. All right. And along the way, remember I talked about data triangulation? Along the way, depending on the company and how much money they have and what their research department is like, maybe they're just timing you to see how long it takes each action, right? Sometimes they'll use biometric sensors to tell when you're really excited. I can usually tell they're just hitting the key real hard, but there's more sophisticated ways to tell. And you know what they're looking at? They are literally looking at things like, okay, boom, you landed off the spaceship, all right? You landed in the alien world. You landed in the dragon's den, right? How many microseconds should they give you to look around and examine the world before something draws your attention, all right? Because if they start out right away going, look over here, it's too easy. It's no fun, right? So they got to wait some magical amount of time. And then there's just a little something. And if you're really good and do this all the time, you catch it right away. If not, they have to figure out how much time to let that glimmer and how bright to let it get. Again, without what? Ruining it. Because if you came on a Friday night and you finished the whole game by 10 p.m., what are you going to say? It's lame, right? It's no fun. And if you leave Sunday and you didn't finish it, you're going to feel really frustrated and unsatisfied, right? So that perfect zone is the goal in this case. More time. Sooner or later, I'm going to get this. Uh-oh. What if the battery went dead? I think he's still in the zone. I am hitting it. Well, I'm trying to point it toward the laptop. You want to just hit it for me for the next couple? That's right. That's exactly right. Oops, now I'm going to head. Now I killed the punchline. All right. But yes, we're here. We're back. All right. So the two more things I want to talk about just briefly, because I have a feeling I'm going over time. I got carried away. I got in the zone. All right. Let's talk about missing out, because a lot of you folks are probably thinking to yourself, okay, this is all cool. This is fascinating. I'm hoping that you're thinking to yourself, this is fascinating stuff. But it doesn't really apply to me. I don't work in that kind of a category, right? Not really my stuff, right? Well, what if we're missing the opportunity for fun? All right. What if we have assumed that we're in a category that is so rational and has such concrete goals that actually fun's not part of the equation? How many people were flabbergasted last year when the new studies came out showing, sorry, I'm blocking you because I'm trying to stay in my little circle over here, saying that Gen Z and younger millennials were more likely to search for a restaurant review on TikTok than on Google or Yelp. And yeah, a couple of you are nodding like, yeah, like how lame would you have to be to go to Google, right? I do. I don't use Google. I usually use Yelp. But I was buying what Yelp was selling. Yeah, okay. I just want to see how many stars and when it's open and what the favorite dishes are, right? But now for some of you that are nodding, I don't know if you're willing to be brave and shout out, but what is cool about getting a restaurant review on TikTok? It feels like it's coming from a friend. Oh, okay. So it was more of a discovery experience on TikTok than it was on Yelp. Well, the thing that really hit me was somebody who said, I felt like I could check the vibe on TikTok. Okay. And that was like, oh, yeah, not wrong. Okay. That is totally different. I hope nobody in here is a Yelp researcher who missed this. If so, I'm going to apologize in advance. But they missed an opportunity for fun. It might not be right for everybody, but there was a group of people out there who wanted to check the vibe, okay? And the little static thumbnail pictures were not doing that for them. So one of the things about fun is being open to digging into that possibility, right? And then the last thing I want to talk about is responsible fun. So, I mentioned, you might play a video game for an entire weekend, right? And some of us who are not gamers might say, oh man, you just wasted your whole weekend. But if that person really felt, oh, there's a couple guilty faces in there. I'm sorry, no judgment, really. You know? But if that person ended the weekend and they didn't think about their horrible boss, and they, you know, feel like, hey, you know, I had fun, I connected with my buddy, that they accomplished a meaningful goal, right? But let's talk about social media. I mentioned I came from Instagram, and actually at Instagram, I was specifically on an area called trust and safety. There are wonderful, wonderful things about social media. Just tonight, I was meeting people that I've seen, I've communicated with virtually that I've never met in person before. And it was so nice to develop those relationships. You learn new things. You explore new worlds. You stay in touch with folks. There's lots of different purposes. Hillary's here. There's lots of great purposes of social media. However, there's also with any kind of fun. I'm not picking on social media because we're going to have a lovely speaker from Snap tonight, okay? I'm not picking on social media, but with just about anything that's fun, if you think about it, you can overdo it, right? And because it's fun and because you're getting gratification from it, being in control of that is not always easy, right? To begin to create guardrails in our understanding of how much time is fun or educational or connecting and how much time is no longer worth your time and doesn't make you feel good. And again, this is something that's broadly applicable to anything that could be fun but could be taken to an extreme. So I would urge you to once again not just look at those behavioral metrics, but to really explore what the outer boundaries might be. And we as researchers should take some responsibility for making sure that we do explore that and that we share that back with the rest of our team. It brings back to mind, I don't know how many of you, some of us actually started, as I said, in marketing research or advertising, but a creative brief, if you've ever seen that, a common thing is to say, what do we want our customers to think about us? What action do you want them to take? And then how do we want them to feel? It's actually a useful question to ask your team as you're setting up goals for the product and for your research. All right, so what are some of our takeaways here? Actually, pause for a moment because I would love to hear what some of your takeaways are after I tell you what I think mine are. Ask yourself, am I triangulating data? Am I just relying too much on behavioral data? Am I relying exclusively on attitudinal data? Can I make friends with somebody in the data science department and look for ways for us to cross-check what we think we're seeing? And when we see those discrepancies, to look at that as an interesting opportunity to dive in and try to figure out how to connect those dots. Am I overlooking opportunities to bring fun into the user experience, right? Don't just ask, I'm trying to figure out when the restaurant is open and whether or not other people liked it. Go a little bit deeper, dig a little bit deeper, right? And then finally, to my last point, do my users feel better after they've used my product, right? Am I in the zone of fun, or do we have the potential to go beyond that? Because there's also things you can do in your product. It's not just telling people not to use it. You know, at Instagram, we developed something called nudges, which is after 20 minutes, we kind of say, hey, you've been looking at a lot of this kind of content, you know, take a break, or maybe look at some kittens instead of all that workout stuff, because maybe it's starting to make you feel bad about yourself, you know, right? There are things you can do, timers, reminders, turn off notifications automatically at night. There are guardrails that you can build into your products that help keep it in the fun zone. So what's the TLDR? Don't be afraid of the fun. There's always an opportunity for it, even in some very serious circumstances. And that, my friends, is it